The morning sun painted the dusty streets of Copper Creek with golden light, but Maya felt none of its warmth as she walked to work. Her hand automatically went to the left side of her face, where a dark red birthmark covered her cheek from her ear to her chin. 28 years old, and she still couldn't walk through town without feeling every stare, every whisper. Maya worked as the town's seamstress, sitting in the back room of Mrs. Henderson's general store, mending clothes and sewing new ones. Her fingers were skilled with needle and thread, creating beautiful dresses that other women would wear to church socials and town dances. But Maya never wore them herself. What was the point? The bell above the store's front door chimed as customers came and went throughout the morning. Maya could hear their voices, their laughter, their conversations about upcoming events. The summer dance was only 3 days away, and everyone was excited. Everyone except Maya. "Maya, dear," Mrs. Henderson called from the front of the store. "Could you come help me for a moment?" Maya set down the blue dress she was hemming and walked to the front counter. 3 young women stood there, all around her age, all married with children. They were the kind of women Maya had grown up with but never really belonged to. "We need alterations on our dance dresses," said Rebecca, the banker's daughter-in-law. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes held that familiar look of pity that Maya knew so well. "The dance is this Saturday, and we want to look perfect." "Of course," Maya said quietly. "Let me get my measuring tape." As she worked, pinning hems and taking in waists, the women chattered about their husbands, their children, their plans for the dance. Maya listened, her hands steady even as her heart ached. This was her life, always on the outside looking in, always the helper, never the one being helped or celebrated. "Maya makes the most beautiful clothes," said Lucy, trying to include her in the conversation. "It's such a shame she never gets to wear them to dances." The room fell quiet. Maya's cheeks burned, but not from the birthmark, from shame. "Well," Rebecca said carefully, "maybe someday the right person will come along." Maya had heard these words 1,000 times. Maybe someday. The right person. As if there was someone out there who could look past her face and see something worth loving. She didn't believe it anymore. After the women left, Maya returned to her sewing. Her hands trembled slightly as she worked, and she had to start a seam over twice. Mrs. Henderson appeared in the doorway with a cup of tea. "You're a good woman, Maya," the older woman said gently. "Don't let anyone make you think otherwise." Maya looked up at her employer, this kind woman who had given her work when no one else would. Mrs. Henderson had lost her husband 2 years ago and understood loneliness, though not the kind that came from a lifetime of rejection. "Thank you," Maya whispered. That evening, Maya walked home to her small cabin on the edge of town. It was tiny but clean, with a garden she tended and curtains she had sewn herself. She lived alone, had always lived alone, and tried to tell herself she was content with the quiet. But as she prepared her simple dinner, she could hear music drifting from the town center. Someone was practicing for the dance, and couples were already gathering to rehearse their steps. The sound of laughter and conversation filled the evening air. Maya sat on her front porch, eating her soup and listening to the distant sounds of community she would never truly be part of. A group of young men rode past on their horses, heading to town for an evening of cards and drinking. One of them was Thomas Wright, the banker's son, a man of 25 who was considered quite a catch. Thomas had spoken to Maya exactly 3 times in her life, once to ask her to mend a shirt, once to tell her the price of fabric at the store, and once, 2 years ago, to make it clear that her hopeful glances in his direction were unwelcome. "I'm being kind when I say this," he had told her quietly after church one Sunday. "But you shouldn't get ideas above your station. A man like me needs a wife who can be seen in society." The memory still stung, not because she had loved Thomas, she hadn't really known him well enough for that, but because his words had confirmed what she had always suspected. She was not the kind of woman men wanted to be seen with. Saturday evening arrived with perfect weather. Maya could see people heading to the dance from her window, the women beautiful, in their fine dresses, the men handsome in their best suits. She had helped create many of those dresses, had sewn the lace and adjusted the fits until they were perfect. For a moment, just a moment, Maya imagined herself getting ready for the dance, putting on a beautiful dress, arranging her hair, walking into the community hall with her head held high. But the fantasy faded quickly. Even if she had the courage to go, who would dance with her? As the evening grew darker, Maya made a decision that surprised even herself. She put on her best dress, a simple green one she had made for herself but never worn, and walked toward town. Not to the dance, she told herself. Just to walk. Just to be outside on such a beautiful night. The community hall was bright, with lantern light and music poured from its open windows. Maya stood in the shadows across the street, watching through the windows as couples spun across the dance floor. She recognized everyone, the shopkeeper dancing with his wife, the doctor with the school teacher, young couples just starting their lives together. For a moment, she almost turned to go home. But something kept her there, watching this world she longed to be part of. Then she saw movement in the doorway and her heart sank. Thomas Wright was stepping outside with two of his friends, probably for some fresh air and a drink from the flask she knew they passed around at these events. Maya turned to hurry away, but it was too late. Thomas had seen her. "Well, look who's here," he called out, his voice carrying the confidence that came from too much whiskey. "Maya's come to watch the dance." His friends laughed, and Maya felt her face burn. She tried to walk away quickly, but Thomas called after her. "Why don't you come inside, Maya? I'm sure someone would dance with you." More laughter. Maya stopped walking, her hands clenched into fists. "What do you say, boys?" Thomas continued, warming to his audience. "Should we find someone willing to dance with our seamstress?" "Might be hard," one of his friends replied. "Takes a brave man to dance with a face like that." The words hit Maya like physical blows. She had endured whispers and stares her entire life, but rarely such direct cruelty. Tears began to blur her vision, but she refused to cry in front of them. "Come now," Thomas said, pretending kindness. "Don't be upset. We're just having fun. Besides, you must know by now that some women are meant for marriage and some are meant for other things. You're good with your hands, Maya. You have your place." Her place, as if she was a thing to be categorized and put on a shelf. "You're drunk, Thomas Wright," Maya said, her voice shaking but clear. "And you're cruel." "I'm honest," he replied, "which is kinder than letting you live in foolish dreams." Maya turned and ran then, her skirts tangling around her legs as she fled from their laughter. She ran past her cabin, past the edge of town, into the desert where the darkness could hide her tears. She stumbled over rocks and brush, her fine dress catching on thorns until she could no longer hear the music or the laughter or any sound from the world that had rejected her. When she finally stopped, gasping for breath, she found herself near a large rock formation she had never seen before. Maya collapsed against the rocks, finally allowing the tears to come. All the years of loneliness, all the careful hope she had tried to maintain, all the quiet dignity she had wrapped around herself like armor, it all crumbled away. "No man has ever wanted me," she sobbed to the empty desert. "No man ever will." The words echoed off the rocks and disappeared into the night. Maya cried until she had no tears left, cried for the girl who had dreamed of love and the woman who had learned to live without it. She cried for all the dances she would never dance, all the conversations she would never have, all the children she would never hold. The desert was silent around her, vast and eternal under the star-filled sky. Maya had always found peace in solitude, but tonight even the stars seemed distant and cold. She was utterly alone in a way that went beyond physical isolation. She was alone in her very existence, unmarked by love or desire or even simple human kindness. She didn't know that from the shadows above, someone was watching. Someone who had heard her words and felt them strike his heart like an arrow. Someone who saw not a marked face in the moonlight, but a woman whose pain called to something deep in his soul. The Apache warrior had come to this sacred place to pray for his dying mother, to ask the spirits for guidance in these troubled times. His people were being pushed further into the desert, further from the lands they had known for generations. Soldiers came more frequently now, and there was talk of being moved to a reservation far from the mountains and springs that held their history. He had expected to find only silence at the sacred spring. Instead, he had found a woman's broken heart laid bare under the stars, and something in her words had awakened a feeling he had never experienced before. Maya sat in the darkness, unaware that her life was about to change, unaware that her words of despair had reached the one person in the world who would prove them wrong. She felt empty, hollowed out by grief. Maya wiped her eyes and tried to stand, her legs stiff from sitting on the hard ground. The tears had stopped, but her heart still felt heavy as stone. She needed to get home before anyone noticed she was gone, though she doubted anyone would. As she turned to leave, a shadow moved above her on the rocks. Maya's breath caught in her throat. In the moonlight, she could make out the silhouette of a man standing on the ridge above her. For a moment, neither of them moved. Her heart pounded with fear, then curiosity as she realized he wasn't moving toward her or away from her. He was, simply standing there, as still as the rocks themselves. "Who's there?" she called softly, her voice still rough from crying. The figure moved then, climbing down from the rocks with the fluid grace of someone who knew this desert well. As he came closer, Maya could see that he was an Apache warrior, tall and lean with long dark hair and clothes made from leather and woven cloth. Her first instinct was to run, but something in his careful, respectful approach made her stay. He stopped several feet away from her, close enough that she could see his face in the starlight. He was young, perhaps her own age, with kind eyes and a gentle expression that surprised her. She had seen Apache men before, but always from a distance, always in circumstances filled with tension and fear. This man looked at her with something she had never seen in any man's eyes before. Recognition, not of her face or her name, but of her pain, as if he understood exactly what had brought her to this lonely place in the middle of the night. "You cry," he said in careful English, each word chosen with thought. "Why you cry?" Maya stared at him. Of all the things she had expected him to say, this gentle question was not one of them. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, suddenly aware of how she must look, tear-stained and wild, her hair escaping its pins, her good dress torn from running through the desert. She began, then stopped. How could she explain to this stranger what she had never been able to explain to anyone? How could she put into words a lifetime of loneliness and rejection? "You heard me," she said finally. "You heard what I said." He nodded slowly. "I hear. I understand. Do you?" The words came out harsher than she meant them to, but the pain was still too fresh. "Do you really understand what it's like to be unwanted? To know that no one will ever choose you?" The warrior was quiet for a long moment, his eyes thoughtful. When he spoke again, his voice was soft but sure. "My people, we know unwanted," he said. "We know what is to have no place welcome us." Maya looked at him more closely. She had lived in Arizona territory long enough to know that the Apache were being forced from their lands, hunted by soldiers, pushed to the edges of survival, but she had never thought about what that might feel like for one person, one man standing in the desert under the stars. "That's different," she said, but without conviction. "Is it?" He took a small step closer, his movements careful and non-threatening. "You have Mark on face, I see. People in town, they see only Mark?" Maya's hand went automatically to her birthmark, a gesture so familiar she hardly noticed it anymore. But something in his question made her really consider it. Did people see only the mark? Or did they choose to see only the mark? "Yes," she whispered. He nodded again, understanding passing between them like a shared language. "In my language," he said, "I am called Coda. It means helper, one who brings what is needed." "I'm Maya," she replied, surprised to find herself giving her name to this stranger in the desert. "Maya," he repeated, and something in the way he said it made it sound different than when anyone else spoke her name. There was respect in it, and attention, as if her name mattered. They stood in silence for a moment, two people who had never expected to meet, looking at each other across the space of cultures and languages and histories that separated them. "You said no man want you," Coda said finally. Maya's cheeks burned with embarrassment. To hear her desperate words repeated back to her was almost unbearable. "You don't need to remind me," she said, turning away. But his next words stopped her. Cold. "Then I want you more than them all." Maya spun back to face him, sure she had misheard. "What?" "I want you more than them all," he repeated, his voice calm and certain. "Men in town, they see Mark and think you broken. But you not broken. You here, under stars, crying for something they too small to give you. That make you strong, not weak." Maya stared at him, her heart beating so hard she was sure he could hear it. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever looked at her the way he was looking at her now, as if she was worth seeing, worth knowing, worth wanting. "You don't even know me," she said weakly. "I know enough," Coda replied. "I know you cry not because you weak, but because you have big heart that hurts when it empty. I know you beautiful even when you think you not." Beautiful? The word felt foreign in her mouth. She had never been called beautiful, not once in her 28 years. Coda moved closer, slowly, watching her face for any sign that she wanted him to stop. When she didn't move away, he reached out and gently touched the edge of her birthmark with his fingertips. Maya flinched, but not from pain. No one had ever touched her mark before. People looked at it, stared at it, talked about it, but no one had ever simply touched it as if it were just another part of her. "In my people's way," he said softly, "marks on skin are signs from spirits, signs that person is chosen for something special. Your mark, it does not make you ugly. It make you marked by spirits, make you powerful." Maya felt tears starting again, but these were different tears. For the first time in her life, someone was telling her that her difference made her special instead of shameful. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You will," he said simply. "If you want to." They talked until the eastern sky began to show the first pale light of dawn. Coda's English was limited, but his patience was endless. When words failed, he drew pictures in the dirt with a stick, mountains and rivers, animals and plants. His people's symbols for concepts Maya had never considered. He told her about his mother, who was dying of a sickness the medicine men could not cure. He told her about his father, killed by soldiers 2 years before. He told her about the sacred spring hidden in these rocks, where his people had come to pray for generations. Maya found herself talking too, more than she had talked to anyone in years. She told him about her work, about her small cabin, about the garden where she grew vegetables and herbs. She told him about books she loved to read and songs she hummed while she sewed. As the sky grew lighter, Maya realized she needed to get home before people in town started their day. "I have to go," she said reluctantly. Coda nodded. "You come back?" I don't know. This is all so strange. Yesterday I didn't even know you existed. Yesterday I not know you existed too," he said with a small smile. "But now I know. Now everything different." Maya looked at him, this man who had appeared out of the darkness like an answer to a prayer she had been afraid to pray. Everything about this was impossible. He was Apache. She was white. He lived in the desert. She lived in town. Their worlds were not meant to touch, let alone overlap. But when he looked at her, she felt beautiful. When he spoke to her, she felt heard. When he had whispered those words, "Then I want you more than them all," she had felt, for the first time in her life, wanted. "Tomorrow night?" he asked. "You come to spring tomorrow night?" Maya knew she should say no, knew this was dangerous and foolish and impossible. But when she opened her mouth, different words came out. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll come back." Smile that spread across Coda's face was like sunrise itself, warm and bright and full of promise. He reached out and took her hand, lifting it to his lips and kissing her knuckles gently, a gesture of respect and affection that made Maya's heart flutter. "Until tomorrow, Maya," he said. She walked home through the desert dawn, her torn dress and tangled hair evidence of her night in the wilderness. But Maya felt different as she walked, lighter somehow, as if a weight she had carried for so long had been lifted from her shoulders. For the first time in her adult life, Maya had something to look forward to. Someone wanted to see her again. Someone thought she was worth waiting for. As she slipped into her cabin just as the sun painted the sky pink and gold, Maya caught sight of herself in her small mirror. The birthmark was still there, dark against her pale skin. But for the first time when she looked at it, she didn't see ugliness. She saw what Coda had seen, a mark that made her different, special, chosen. She touched it gently, the way he had touched it, and felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Then I want you more than them all." His words echoed in her mind as she changed out of her torn dress and prepared for the day ahead. Maya had work to do, clothes to mend, a normal life to maintain. But underneath the ordinary surface of her routine, something extraordinary was beginning. That evening, as she sat in her cabin mending a torn seam, Maya found herself humming. It was a song she remembered from childhood, something her mother used to sing while she worked. She hadn't hummed in years, hadn't felt the lightness of spirit that made songs want to bubble up from inside her. But tonight, with the promise of tomorrow's meeting warming her heart, Maya hummed while she sewed, and planned what she would say to the Apache warrior who had called her beautiful under the desert stars. Maya spent the next day in a strange, dreamlike state. Her hands worked automatically, stitching seams and hemming dresses, while her mind kept drifting back to the previous night. Had it really happened? Had she really met an Apache warrior who called her beautiful and promised to want her more than anyone else ever had? Every time doubt crept in, she would touch the place on her hand where his lips had brushed her knuckles, and she would remember. It had been real. He had been real. "You seem different today," Mrs. Henderson observed as Maya worked in the back room. "Happier somehow." Maya looked up from the yellow dress she was altering, surprised. "Do I? There's a lightness about you that wasn't there yesterday. Did something happen?" Maya felt her cheeks warm. I had a good walk last night. The desert air was refreshing." Mrs. Henderson smiled knowingly. "Desert air has a way of clearing the mind. I'm glad you're taking time for yourself, dear." As evening approached, Maya found herself growing nervous. What if Coda didn't come? What if he had changed his mind in the daylight, realized how foolish their midnight meeting had been? What if she had imagined the whole thing? But when the sun set and Maya made her way back to the sacred spring, he was already there, sitting by the water's edge with the patience of someone who belonged to this landscape as naturally as the rocks and sage. "Maya," he said when he saw her, and the warmth in his voice chased away all her doubts. "You came," she said, relief evident in her voice. "I say I come. I come." He stood and walked toward her, moving with that same fluid grace she remembered. "You think I not come?" "I wasn't sure." In daylight, it all seemed so... She searched for the word. Impossible. Coda nodded thoughtfully. "Many things seem impossible until they happen. Then they just... are." Over the following weeks, their evening meetings became a routine that Maya looked forward to more than anything else in her life. She would finish her work, eat a simple dinner, then slip out of town as darkness fell to meet Coda by the spring. Their communication improved rapidly. Coda was quick to learn new English words, and Maya began picking up Apache phrases. More importantly, they learned to understand each other beyond words, through gestures, expressions, and the growing connection between them. Coda told her stories of his childhood, of learning to hunt with his father, of the old ways his grandmother had taught him. He spoke of his people's reverence for the land, their connection to the spirits in every rock and tree and stream. He told her about his mother, growing weaker each day, and how the tribe was struggling with the constant threat of soldiers and displacement. Maya shared her own stories, her lonely childhood as the marked girl, her pride in learning to sew and create beautiful things, her dreams of someday having a home filled with love instead of silence. She told him about books she had read, describing far-off places and adventures that fascinated him. "You teach me, Red?" Coda asked one night, after Maya had told him about a story set in a great city across the ocean. "You want to learn? I want to know your world better. Books are how you travel without moving, yes?" Maya laughed, delighted by his way of seeing things. Yes, exactly like that. So their meetings expanded to include reading lessons. Maya brought simple books from her small collection, and they would sit by the spring with Coda carefully sounding out words while she helped him understand their meanings. In return, he taught her about the desert, which plants could heal, which tracks belonged to which animals, how to read the sky for weather, and the land for water. As spring turned toward summer, Maya realized something that both thrilled and terrified her. She was falling in love. It wasn't just that Coda saw her as beautiful, though that was part of it. It was the way he listened when she talked as if her thoughts mattered. It was the gentleness with which he corrected her pronunciation of Apache words, never making her feel foolish for trying. It was the way he looked at her in the lamplight, as she read to him, as if she was the most precious thing in his world, and she could see in his eyes that he was falling in love too. The realization came with complications that kept Maya awake at night. What future could they possibly have together? His people and hers were essentially at war. Even if there were peace, the social barriers seemed insurmountable. A white woman and an Apache man, the very idea would scandalize the town and possibly endanger them both. But when she was with Coda, these concerns faded into the background. When he took her hand or touched her face or simply looked at her with those warm, understanding eyes, the rest of the world seemed far away and unimportant. One evening in late June, Coda seemed more troubled than usual. He was quiet through their reading lesson, his attention clearly elsewhere. "What's wrong?" Maya asked finally, setting down the book they had been sharing. "Soldiers come tomorrow," he said heavily. "To our camp. Someone tell them we hear." Maya's heart clenched with fear. "What will you do?" "We leave tonight. Move deeper into mountains. Find new place to make camp." He looked at her with pain in his eyes. "I not know when I can come back." The thought of not seeing him, of not knowing if he was safe, was almost unbearable. Maya had grown so accustomed to their meetings that the idea of empty evenings stretched ahead of her felt like returning to a prison she had forgotten she was in. "How long will you be gone?" "I not know. Maybe long time. Maybe—" He didn't finish the sentence, but Maya understood. Maybe forever, if the soldiers caught them or drove them too far away. They sat in silence, both knowing this might be their last evening together for a very long time, or possibly ever. "Maya," Coda said finally, turning to face her fully. "I need tell you something." She nodded, her heart pounding. "These weeks meeting you here, learning to know you, they change everything for me. Before I meet you, I think maybe I never find woman to love. Apache women, they look at me and see man who might not live long in these times, who might not be able to protect family. But you see me different. I see you as you are," Maya whispered, "strong and kind and good, and I see you as you are, beautiful and wise and brave." "Yes, brave," he said when she started to protest. "You come here every night, even when scared. You learn my words, care about my people. You have mark on face, but you not let it make you small inside." He reached into a leather pouch at his side and pulled out something that gleamed in the moonlight. It was a necklace, made from turquoise stones and silver, worked in intricate patterns that seemed to capture the sky and water. "This belonged to my grandmother," he said, holding it carefully. "She give to my mother when she marry my father. My mother she give to me before she die last week." Maya gasped. "Coda, your mother. I'm so sorry." He nodded, grief evident in his face. "She go to spirits 3 days ago, but before she go, I tell her about you." I tell her about woman with Mark who is not broken by it, and she say," he paused, searching for the English words. "She say woman who can love Apache man in these times, who can see past skin and tribe, to heart. That woman worthy of grandmother's necklace." He held the necklace out to Maya, his hand steady despite the emotion in his voice. "This is asking, Maya. This is asking if you want to be my woman, my wife, in Apache way." Maya stared at the beautiful necklace, her heart racing. She understood what he was asking, the magnitude of it. This wasn't just a token of affection. This was a proposal that would bind her to him and his world, that would make her his wife in the eyes of his people, even if the law would never recognize it. Your people. Would they accept me? My mother accept you. That enough for others, to try. And Maya? He moved closer to her. I not ask you choose easy path. I ask you choose true path. Path where you loved completely, wanted completely, by man who see your spirit and your strength. Tears ran down Maya's face as she looked at him. This extraordinary man who had found her broken in the desert and shown her she was whole. Who had seen her birthmark not as a flaw, but as a sign of something special. Who offered her not comfort or security, but true love and complete acceptance. Yes, she whispered, then stronger. Yes, Coda. Yes to all of it. He smiled then, a smile that seemed to light up the entire desert, and carefully lifted the necklace to place it around her neck. The turquoise was cool against her skin, but it warmed quickly, as if it recognized her as its new owner. In Apache way, he said softly, "You are now my wife, and I am your husband. Nothing can change this, Maya. Not soldiers, not distance, not anything." He kissed her then, gently at first, then with all the love and longing that had been building between them for weeks. Maya had never been kissed before, had never thought she would be, but kissing Coda felt as natural as breathing. When they finally parted, both were breathing hard, foreheads pressed together in the moonlight. "I have to go," he said reluctantly. "Tribe will leave soon." "I know." Maya touched the necklace at her throat, drawing strength from its weight. "But you'll come back to me. Always," he promised. "No matter how long, no matter how far I come, back to you." Maya watched him disappear into the darkness, her new husband, her Apache warrior who had taught her that love could transcend any barrier. She sat by the spring until dawn, touching the turquoise necklace and holding on to his promise. 3 weeks passed without word from Coda. Maya went through her daily routine, sewing, mending, helping customers at Mrs. Henderson's store, but her heart lived in constant worry. Every night she touched the turquoise necklace hidden beneath her dress and wondered where he was, if he was safe, if he would ever return. She had become skilled at hiding her feelings, but the strain was beginning to show. Mrs. Henderson noticed, her frequent glances toward the windows, her tendency to stop mid-sentence when she heard horses approaching. "Maya, dear, are you feeling well?" the older woman asked one afternoon. "You seem distracted lately." "I'm fine," Maya replied quickly, focusing harder on the hem she was stitching. "Just tired, I suppose." But she wasn't fine. The 3 weeks since Coda had left felt longer than the 3 months before she had met him. Now that she knew what it felt like to be loved completely, the loneliness was almost unbearable. Worse, people in town were beginning to notice changes in her. The confidence that loving Coda had given her was visible in the way she carried herself, the way she no longer instinctively covered her birthmark when speaking to customers. Some people seemed puzzled by her transformation, others appeared suspicious. "Something's different about that Maya girl," she overheard Mrs. Patterson saying to her friend outside the store. "She's gotten bold somehow, uppity." Maya's hands stilled on her sewing. She had been called many things in her life, pitiful, unfortunate, marked, but never bold or uppity. The words should have stung, but instead they filled her with a strange pride. Coda had seen strength in her that she hadn't known existed. Perhaps others could see it too now. The change in her became more apparent when Thomas Wright came into the store the following week. He needed a shirt mended, a tear in the sleeve from a riding accident. In the past, Maya would have taken the shirt with downcast eyes, mumbled about when it would be ready, and retreated to her sewing corner. This time she looked directly at him as she examined the tier. "This will need to be rewoven," she said matter-of-factly. "The fabric is damaged beyond simple mending. It will take 3 days." Thomas seemed surprised by her direct manner. 3 days? That seems excessive for such a small repair. "Quality. Work takes time," Maya replied calmly. "If you prefer faster work, you might try the seamstress in Silver City." It was a mild response, but coming from Maya, who had never before suggested that a customer might go elsewhere. It felt revolutionary. Thomas stared at her for a moment, clearly taken aback. "You've changed, Maya," he said finally. "Have I?" She met his gaze steadily. "Or have you simply never really looked at me before?" Thomas left the store without another word, but Maya could feel his confusion like a tangible thing. She had spent years being invisible to him, and suddenly he was being forced to see her as a person with opinions and boundaries. The confrontation left Maya shaken, but also exhilarated. For the first time in her life, she had stood up for herself without apology. Coda had been right. She was stronger than she had known. But her newfound confidence came with risks she hadn't anticipated. Word spread quickly in a small town, and soon people were talking about Maya's strange behavior. Some said she was getting above herself. Others whispered about what might have caused such a dramatic change in someone they thought they knew. The speculation grew worse when little Jenny Morrison, Mrs. Henderson's 10-year-old granddaughter, made an innocent observation that would change everything. "Grandmother," Jenny said one afternoon while helping in the store, "why does Miss Maya have that pretty blue necklace under her dress?" Maya's blood turned to ice. She had been so careful to keep the necklace hidden, but children noticed things adults missed. "What necklace, dear?" Mrs. Henderson asked, looking curiously at Maya. "The one with the blue stones. It shows sometimes, when she bends over her sewing. It's very pretty." "Where did you get it, Miss Maya?" Maya's hands went instinctively to her throat, where the necklace lay hidden beneath the high collar of her dress. Every eye in the store was on her now, Mrs. Henderson's, Jenny's, and those of 2 customers who had been browsing fabric. It was my mother's," Maya lied, her voice barely steady. "How lovely that you've decided to wear it," Mrs. Henderson said kindly. "You so rarely wear jewelry," but Maya could see the questions in her employer's eyes. Mrs. Henderson had known Maya for years, had helped arrange her mother's funeral, had never seen any mention of valuable jewelry among her few possessions. That evening, Maya paced her small cabin in distress. How long before people started asking more questions about the necklace? How long before someone recognized the distinctive Apache craftsmanship? And what would happen then? She was so lost in worried thoughts that she almost missed the soft sound at her window. 3 quiet taps, a pause, then 2 more. Her heart leaped. It was the signal Coda had taught her, used by Apache scouts to identify themselves to friendly contacts. Maya rushed to the window and carefully lifted the edge of the curtain. There, in the shadow beside her cabin, stood Coda. Thinner than she remembered, with new lines of worry around his eyes, but alive and whole, and there. She opened the window carefully, looking around to make sure no one was watching, then helped him climb inside. The moment his feet touched her floor, Maya was in his arms, holding him as if she could keep him there through sheer force of will. "I thought," she began, then stopped. There were too many things she had thought during his absence. Too many fears and worries to voice. "I know," he whispered into her hair. "I know. But I hear now. I promise I hear." They held each other in the darkness of her small cabin, both afraid to let go, afraid this might be another dream that would disappear with daylight. "How did you get here?" Maya asked finally. "Are you safe?" "For now," Coda said, his voice grim. "Soldiers, they drive us far into mountains, many days walking. But I tell my cousin I must come back, must see my wife. He helped me sneak away." "Your cousin knows about me?" "My people know." When I not take Apache woman for wife, they wonder why. I tell them about you. Some angry, some curious. But my mother's brother, he say if grandmother's necklace choose you, then spirits approve. Maya touched the hidden necklace, grateful for its weight against her skin. Coda, people here are starting to notice changes in me. They're asking questions. His face grew serious. What kind questions? Maya told him about Thomas, about Jenny's observation about the growing whispers in town. As she talked, she watched worry deepen in his eyes. This dangerous, Maya. If they suspect you have a Apache husband, I know. She took his hands in hers. But I don't care. I'd rather face danger with you than safety without you. Coda cupped her face gently, his thumb tracing the edge of her birthmark in the tender gesture she had grown to love. You brave woman, he said softly. Braver than many warriors I know. But brave not mean we should not be careful. They spent the night talking quietly, sharing the fears and hopes that had sustained them through their separation. Coda told her about life in the mountain camps, about the constant vigilance required to stay ahead of army patrols, about his people's growing desperation as they were pushed further from the lands they knew. Maya told him about her work, about Mrs. Henderson's kindness, about the small changes in how people treated her now that she carried herself differently. I not want you to have to choose between me and safe life, Coda said as dawn approached. But soldiers getting closer. My people, we might have to go very far away. Maybe Mexico. Then I'll go with you, Maya said without hesitation. Maya, you not understand what you saying. Life with my people, especially now, it very hard. We have little food, little water, always moving, always hiding. You never live like that. I've never lived with love like this either, she replied firmly. I'll learn. I'll adapt. I won't let you go without me again. Coda looked at her for a long moment, seeing the determination. In her eyes, the strength that had been there all along but was now fully awakened. If soldiers come here looking for Apache contacts, you could be in great danger, he said carefully. I'm already in danger, Maya replied. The danger of living the rest of my life without the one person who has ever truly seen me and loved me. That's a risk I won't take. Just then, they heard the sound of horses approaching fast. Multiple horses moving with military precision. Coda was at the window instantly, peering carefully through the curtain. Soldiers, he said grimly. Many of them. Coming to town. Maya's heart pounded as she realized what this meant. If they were searching for Apache contacts, if they had somehow learned about her meetings with Coda, both their lives could be in immediate peril. The root cellar, she said quickly, grabbing his hand. My cabin has a small root cellar, you can hide there. Coda followed her to the small trapdoor hidden under a braided rug in the corner of her main room. The space beneath was tiny, barely, large enough for one person, but it was completely concealed. I don't like hiding while you face danger, he said as she helped him down into the cramped space. You're not hiding, Maya replied firmly. You're surviving. We're both surviving so we can have a life together. She replaced the trapdoor, and rug just as heavy boots sounded on her front porch. Maya smoothed her hair, straightened her dress, and tried to. The next few days passed in tense quiet. Coda remained hidden in Maya's cabin during daylight hours while she went about her normal routine, trying to act as if nothing had changed. But the strain was enormous. Every unexpected sound made her heart race. Every customer who lingered too long in the store made her wonder if they suspected something. Worse, the soldiers had not been satisfied with their initial searches. Captain Morrison returned twice more, each time asking more pointed questions about Maya's activities, her evening walks, her recent change in demeanor. You seem different lately, Miss Maya, he said during his third visit. More confident. People are talking. Are they? Maya kept her voice level while folding fabric. I suppose I've been feeling better about myself recently. Is confidence a crime, Captain? Not at all, he replied, but his eyes remained suspicious. It's just unusual for someone to change so dramatically without cause. Maya met his gaze directly. Perhaps the cause is simply that I've realized I'm worth more than I previously thought. It was a dangerous game she was playing, deflecting suspicion with honesty that revealed nothing while revealing everything. But Maya had learned from Coda about the value of strategic truth-telling. That evening, as she and Coda shared a quiet dinner in her cabin, they discussed their increasingly precarious situation. Soldiers getting closer to truth, Coda said grimly. Today I see them talking to people who live near desert. Someone may have seen us meeting at spring. What do we do? Maya asked, though she already knew the answer in her heart. We leave. Tonight. My cousin, he wait with horses 2 miles north of town. We go to my people, then maybe Mexico where Apache can be safe. Maya nodded, though the thought of leaving everything she had ever known filled her with both terror and excitement. I need to gather some things, and I should leave word for Mrs. Henderson. She's been kind to me. I can't just disappear. Maya, Coda's voice was gentle but firm. You understand what this means? You leave this life forever. No coming back. No more sewing in store. No more cabin. No more anything from before. I understand, Maya replied without hesitation. My life before you wasn't really living anyway. It was just existing. They were interrupted by the sound of urgent knocking at Maya's door. Both froze, listening. The knock came again, not the official pounding of soldiers, but something more desperate. Maya peered carefully through the window and saw Mrs. Henderson's granddaughter Jenny, alone and clearly upset. It's Jenny Morrison, Maya whispered to Coda. Captain Morrison's daughter, something's wrong. Coda quickly moved to the bedroom while Maya opened the door. Jenny? What are you doing here so late? Does your grandmother know where you are? The little girl burst into tears. Miss Maya, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to cause trouble. Maya pulled the child inside, kneeling down to her level. What trouble, sweetheart? What are you talking about? The necklace, Jenny sobbed. When I told Papa about your pretty necklace, he got very serious and started asking lots of questions. Then he brought that man to the store today and they made me describe it. The man said it sounded like Indian jewelry and that you must have gotten it from someone. Now Papa says they're going to arrest you tomorrow morning. Maya's blood ran cold. What man, Jenny? Mr. Stevens, the Indian agent. He knows all about Indian things. He said the necklace I described was definitely Apache made and that you must be consorting with hostiles. Jenny looked up at Maya with frightened eyes. Miss Maya, they're going to say you're a traitor. Maya's mind raced. They had planned to leave tonight anyway, but now it was no longer a choice. It was a race against time. Jenny, she said carefully, you need to go home now, and you need to forget you came here, do you understand? Tell no one about this visit. But Miss Maya, go home, sweetheart. Everything will be all right. After Jenny left, Maya quickly told Coda what had happened. His face was grim but unsurprised. We leave now, he said simply. No time to pack much. Maya gathered only essentials, some clothes, a few precious books, her mother's wedding ring, and the small amount of money she had saved. Everything else, her sewing supplies, her furniture, her carefully tended garden, would have to be left behind. As she took one last look around the cabin that had been her home for 5 years, Maya felt a pang of loss. But when Coda took her hand, the sadness faded. Home wasn't a place anymore. Home was wherever they could be together. They slipped out into the darkness, moving carefully through the desert toward the meeting point where Coda's cousin waited, with horses. But they had gone less than a mile when disaster struck. A shot rang out behind them, then shouts. Torchlight flickered in the distance, soldiers on horseback pursuing them. They found we gone too soon, Coda said, pulling Maya down behind a large boulder. Someone must have seen us leave. More shots, closer now. Maya could hear Captain Morrison's voice among the pursuers, calling for them to surrender. Her heart pounded as she realized this might be the end of everything. Their love, their plans, their lives. I not let them take you, Coda said fiercely, checking his rifle. You Apache woman now. Apache woman does not surrender to soldiers. Coda, no. Maya grabbed his arm. There are too many of them. If you fight, they'll kill you. If I not fight, they take you anyway. Make you pay for loving Apache man. Maya looked at him in the moonlight, this brave man who was ready to die, defending her, and felt a surge of fierce love that gave her an idea. There might be another way, she said. What if we don't run? What if we face them together? Coda stared at her. Maya, you cannot reason with soldiers who think you traitor. Not the soldiers, she said, her voice growing stronger with conviction. The town. Everyone will come out when they hear the shooting. What if we face all of them together? What if I tell them the truth about us? About love that sees past skin color and tribe? That very dangerous, Maya. They might kill us both, she finished. Or they might see that love like ours is worth protecting, not destroying. Another shot. Very close now. They were out of time for discussion. Maya stood up from behind the boulder, her hands raised but her voice carrying clearly across the desert. Captain Morrison, I'm here. I surrender. Coda rose beside her, his rifle lowered, his hand finding hers. The soldiers surrounded them quickly, weapons drawn, torches creating a circle of light in the darkness. But Maya was right. The commotion had drawn people from town. Mrs. Henderson was there, and Thomas Wright, and dozens of others, all curious to see what the excitement was about. Captain Morrison stepped forward, his face hard with anger. Maya Carter, you're under arrest for giving aid and comfort to hostile Indians, and this man, Maya interrupted, her voice clear and strong, is my husband. Gasps ran through the crowd. Someone whispered, Indian lover, with disgust. But Maya continued before anyone could stop her. His name is Coda, and he is the best man I have ever known. He saw beauty where all of you saw only ugliness. He offered love where all of you offered only pity or cruelty. Maya, don't... Mrs. Henderson started, but Maya wasn't finished. For 28 years I lived in this town believing I was unworthy of love because of this mark on my face. You all made it very clear that I was damaged goods, unmarriageable, someone to be tolerated but never desired. She looked directly at Thomas Wright as she continued. Some of you were cruel about it. Others were kind but pitying. But none of you ever saw me as a whole woman worthy of respect and love. Maya's voice grew stronger, carrying clearly in the desert night. Then I met Coda. He looked at me and saw strength where you saw weakness. He saw beauty where you saw flaws. He saw a woman worthy of wanting, worthy of choosing, worthy of loving completely. She turned to address the entire crowd. You call him savage, but he has shown me more kindness and respect than I ever received from civilized society. You say I'm a traitor for loving him, but the only thing I betrayed was your expectation that I would spend my life accepting crumbs, when I deserved a feast. Murmurs ran through the crowd, some hostile but others thoughtful. That's all very touching, Captain Morrison said coldly. But the fact remains that you've been consorting with hostile Indians during wartime. That's treason. Treason against what? Maya shot back. Against a society that never wanted me anyway? Against people who made it clear I had no value except as someone to pity? Maya, Thomas Wright stepped forward, his face troubled. You can't mean that. This town is your home. These people are your neighbors. Maya looked at him steadily. When have you ever treated me as a neighbor, Thomas? When have any of you included me as a true member of this community? I've been tolerated here, not welcomed, pitied here, not valued. She gestured to Coda, who stood silent but proud beside her. This man saw me crying in the desert because no man had ever wanted me, and he promised he would want me more than all of you ever had, and he kept that promise. So you betrayed your own people for an Indian? Someone called from the crowd. I chose love over loneliness, Maya replied firmly. I chose someone who valued me over people who merely tolerated me. If that's betrayal, then I'm proud to be called a traitor. Mrs. Henderson stepped forward, her face sad but not angry. Maya, dear, couldn't you have trusted us? Couldn't you have given us a chance to accept this unusual situation?